On the warm night of July 22nd, 1991, two Milwaukee police officers were patrolling the streets of the Oxford Heights neighborhood when a frantic, handcuffed man flagged down their cruiser. The young man, Tracy Edwards, bore deep red marks on his wrists and told a horrific story. He claimed he had been lured into a nearby apartment complex by a soft-spoken, unassuming neighbor, only to find himself held at knife point inside a living nightmare. Sensing the genuine terror in his voice, the officers accompanied Edwards back to apartment 204 at 924 North 24th Street. What they uncovered inside shattered the quiet residential community and horrified the entire world. The small, cluttered apartment contained damning physical evidence of an active, multi-year campaign of extreme violence. The unassuming occupant, a 31-year-old chocolate factory worker named Jeffrey Dahmer, was arrested on the spot, bringing an end to one of the most terrifying sprees in modern American history. As news of the arrest swept through the city, public shock quickly transformed into overwhelming outrage and intense legal scrutiny. Investigators soon realized that this was not a case of an elusive predator operating in total isolation from society. Over a 13-year period spanning from 1978 to 1991, Dahmer had claimed the lives of 17 young men and boys. What made the tragedy infinitely worse was a devastating reality. Multiple red flags, suspicious neighbor complaints, and official police encounters had occurred over the years. Yet systemic oversight, racial biases, and institutional neglect repeatedly allowed Dahmer to slip through the cracks of the justice system and continue his spree unnoticed. To understand how Dahmer operated for so long without detection, one must look at the tragic history of institutional failures that marked his timeline. Dahmer targeted vulnerable, marginalized individuals, primarily young men of color, operating in neighborhoods where local complaints were frequently overlooked by municipal authorities. He relied on a quiet, unremarkable demeanor, presenting himself as polite, submissive, and cooperative whenever confronted by law enforcement or neighbors. This ordinary public persona allowed him to deflect suspicion, even when those around him reported deeply concerning behaviors. The most notorious example of institutional failure occurred on the night of May 27, 1991, just 2 months before Dahmer's final arrest. Neighbors Glenda Cleveland and her family called emergency dispatchers after discovering a 14-year-old boy, Konarak Sintasamphone, wandering outside Dahmer's apartment building in a severely distressed, semi-conscious state. When police officers arrived at the scene, Dahmer presented a calm, persuasive explanation, falsely claiming that the teenager was his adult partner who had simply consumed too much alcohol during a domestic dispute. Despite the obvious physical distress of the minor, the lack of identification, and the frantic pleas of neighboring women who urged officers to investigate further, the responding officers accepted Dahmer's explanation without checking official records or verifying the youth's age. The officers escorted the boy back into Dahmer's apartment and left the premises, even making light of the situation over dispatch radio calls shortly afterward. Had the officers run a standard computer background check, they would have discovered that Dahmer was currently on probation for a prior felony conviction involving the victim's older brother. That catastrophic breakdown in basic police protocol resulted in the immediate loss of a young life and allowed Dahmer to claim several more victims in the weeks that followed. Neighbors in the Oxford Heights apartment complex had also repeatedly raised alarms regarding noxious odors, strange noises, and suspicious activity coming from apartment 204. Glenda Cleveland contacted building management and the Milwaukee Police Department on numerous occasions, detailing foul scents circulating through the building ventilation system and expressing grave concern for the safety of people entering Dahmer's unit. Her warnings were consistently dismissed or attributed to faulty plumbing and spoiled food. The systematic dismissal of reports made by black residents in lower income neighborhoods highlighted profound disparities in how local authorities responded to community safety concerns. Dahmer's ability to evade long-term consequences extended into the judicial system as well. In 1988, he was arrested and convicted for a serious offense involving a minor. Despite the gravity of the crime, he received a surprisingly lenient sentence of 5 years probation with 1 year in a work release program, allowing him to leave custody during the day to attend his job. Court officials and probation officers failed to enforce strict supervision or monitor his living conditions, providing him with the freedom to continue his dark secondary life while serving an official sentence. The aftermath of Dahmer's 1991 arrest sent shockwaves through the Milwaukee Police Department and the local government. Public demonstrations erupted outside city halls, demanding accountability, structural reforms, and the immediate resignation of top officials. An independent commission was formed to investigate police department practices, revealing deep-seated communication gaps, racial insensitivity, and an over-reliance on superficial assumptions. The 3 officers involved in the May 1991 incident were initially suspended and terminated, though 2 were later reinstated through administrative appeals, further fueling public frustration. In January 1992, Jeffrey Dahmer stood trial in a highly publicized court proceeding focused on his mental state and legal sanity. The prosecution demonstrated that Dahmer acted with extreme calculation, going to great lengths to entice victims, eliminate evidence, and conceal his actions from family, co-workers, and authorities. The jury rejected the defense's insanity plea, finding him legally sane and guilty on 15 counts of murder. The judge sentenced Dahmer to 15 consecutive life terms, amounting to over 900 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Dahmer was incarcerated at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. On November 28, 1994, 3 years into his life sentence, Dahmer was killed during a work assignment inside the prison gym by a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver. The death brought a violent end to the perpetrator, but it could never erase the deep pain inflicted upon the victims' families or repair the trust broken between the community and local institutions. The story of the Milwaukee Monster remains one of the most haunting chapters in modern true crime history. It stands not only as an examination of an individual predator, but as a severe warning about the dangers of institutional apathy, bias, and procedural failure. It proved that when community voices are ignored and protocols are compromised, dark forces can operate in plain sight. If you want to help us continue uncovering true crime histories, forgotten mysteries, and the dark cases that shaped our world, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all notifications right now. Share this video across every platform and leave a comment below with your thoughts on this investigation. The deeper we dig, the darker the truth becomes.